Hey, Matthias here from Winster.ai. Thanks for being here. Today we're going to answer 3 of the most frequently asked questions our clients have. And number 1 is, how does the entire customer journey look like? We're looking at a clickstream, aka the path to conversion, going all the way from the first interaction your brand, our brand has with the user and the value attributed to that user. Number 2, which marketing campaigns drive new customers versus existing ones? And question number 3, which activities bring you the customers with the highest CLV? Let's start here with question number 1. Now, to look at the entire customer journey, what we want to do, we want to go in 3 steps. Step number 1 is extracting the Google Analytics data on click or a session level stream. That's what we're going to cover there. Step number 2, we're going to join advertising data to understand the costs involved of these journeys. And then step number 3, we're adding on the CRM data to then get the full, what we call the CRM revenue attribution. So we have the whole path to conversion, the costs, as well as the value which is generated inside the CRM system. So first step, now we have a path to conversion. If you're familiar with Google Analytics, you know you have an acquisition view and then you have a multi-channel funnel view. What we look at here is a bit more, it's a bit different. There is a dimension called client ID within Google Analytics. That's what we're mainly going to cover today. That's one way of stitching together the whole journey, and that's what we look at today. There is a second option, which we're not going to cover today, which I just quickly explain, which is working with custom dimensions. Let me explain what both of them mean quickly. So number 1, client ID, what we do today. So I'm not going to read the whole text here, but essentially, it's an identifier for Google Analytics to analyze the whole journey. It's the Google cookie, so to say. So what that means, when we work with client ID based conversion journeys, we are on a cookie level and we're not on a person level. So we don't do person attribution. If we work with custom dimensions, which is a bit higher effort to implement, we're working with a known identifier. We have clients, they use a loyalty ID of their CRM program and set that up as a custom dimension in their Google Analytics. And then instead of a client ID stream, the custom dimension stream could be used. And what I mean with stream is the sessions each of these IDs have in chronological order, aka your interaction with your website, or the customer's interaction with your website. Now we have 2 ways of setting this up, and so one part of the audience or one part of our customer base is on e-commerce. The other one has other events they want to model the data for, which is namely form fills or other events like app transactions, app installs. Now, for e-commerce, it's extremely simple. The only thing you do, and most likely you already have it up and running, is you just turn on e-commerce in Google Analytics or enhanced e-commerce. And for form fills and other events, you do the same actually. So you set up and turn on e-commerce in Google Analytics. And what we now do is we create an event which stores the hashed email or phone number as a transaction ID. Alternatively, you could use any identifier you wish to use and store that in the data layer. And then on completion of the event, most likely it will be a button click if it's a form fill, you fire an e-commerce transaction, and that e-commerce transaction then contains the hashed value of the email address or phone number or whatever identifier you decide to use. Now, here is an example how we do it with our website. So you see this type email. If you look at the code of the website, so what we do, we create the trigger, which runs a script, And then we're pushing the hashed value of the email address into the data layer, as I explained before. And then we fire the event. This is how the script looks. Step 1 here, we're loading a hashing library, which as JCL is the one used here. And then we do a query selector on the div, which is looking for fields with the ID, or with divs with the ID of email, or type email, or input with the name of email. Maybe you want to adjust it so that it works for you. You need to probably analyze how your forms on the website look like. Then the next step, what we do here is we hash that information here with the library. So we hash the value of the email into the data layer, and then we need to give a transaction total for Google Analytics to accept it as an e-commerce transaction, and then we push it, and then we fire that event. That allows us then to, the next step, to get the customer journey, meaning the touch points, and the hashed email, meaning what we just stored in the data layer. Now, if you're in our platform, the way you set this up is you just select your property, and inside there you select your view, and then you select e-commerce revenue, and that's it. Then the data will stream. And how it looks in the dashboard, I can quickly show here. It's just a sample data set, but you then see the path to conversion, the transaction IDs. So we have the whole journeys captured. So that's only step 1. Now, step 2, costs and journey modeling. As a next step, we want to understand, now that we know what the path to conversions is, how much each touch point costs, and then join that costs data in to understand the cost per acquisition or the return on investment. And here is a similar thing. We go back into, or if you set up, tool, you go here, let's connect all your accounts. You select Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads, whatever ad platforms you have. Connect them, and then you're good to go. Now, it's a second step. We model and join the costs and conversions. Now, what I will do is I will add all the links below, and there are tons of videos we created on this topic, so I'm not going to go too much into the detail. Quick summary, we model the data, we have the path to conversion, and then we give each part of the conversion, meaning a touch point, a part of the credit. We're using a probabilistic model to do that. Now what we have is we have the source, the medium, we have attributed revenue, and in case there is attributed revenue, we have attributed revenue, otherwise we have attributed conversions, which is the count of conversions attributed using the probabilistic model. Now that serves us, or that gives us an answer to question number 1. How does the entire customer journey look like? Now we're going into blending in the CRM data, and there it gets a bit more custom, and you probably need to first think about the use case you want to, or the questions you want to answer with your data when you join together your analytics data streams with your CRM data stream. I cover some of them, which we frequently see. For SaaS, it is understanding CAC CLV ratio. It's boosting campaigns with high conversion rate to customers, meaning understanding leads, flows of lead to opportunity to customer, instead of optimizing for a number of leads. You want to have, instead of just a qualitative, instead of a quantitative, you also want to have a qualitative measure in there to really see who becomes a customer. Then for e-commerce, we want to optimize for maybe acquisitions only, meaning we exclude the recurring customers. That's also quite frequently done with some of the more advanced users we work with, because there is this notion of, why do I spend money on advertising to customers which are already customers? So they will most likely come back anyway. So what you want to do is you want to focus on purely on acquiring new customers and then optimizing your media based on these insights. And the second case, which is also top, is net margin, if a net revenue attribution, meaning you can join on the transaction ID level, you can join in your net margin data, or you can join in your net revenue data, which is important if you're in e-commerce with quite a few or quite a high percentage of returns. High-end B2C or B2B with CRM touchpoints, same thing as SaaS really. You want to boost the campaigns with high conversion rate to customers. And in some cases we also help, or the question is also about what products are actually sold from the campaigns which acquire the customers, which then fill a form. You might have multiple products, some more expensive, some less expensive, and understanding this also can be a nice factor to optimize the media buy. Yeah. Now, as first step here, you would just need to specify the CRM fields. So in e-commerce, you most likely want to have the first transaction ID if you want to go, if you want to optimize for acquisitions, and then you want to join the data. So you want to give a data stream where you give the transaction ID, number one, to the second field is the CLV. So you have the acquisition journey and the CLV, so you can model towards that. And then you have net revenue, which you, for example, or net margin, which you can do on a transaction ID level. So what we will do in that case is we replace the revenue in the Google Analytics data stream with the revenue from the CRM system to really then understand what the net revenue. And of course you could also replace the net revenue and use margin instead, do exactly the same. So you would see a margin model. Yeah. Form fields and other events. What we see most commonly joined in is the deal stage. Is it a lead, an opportunity, or a customer? Customer CLV, if that is available, and the product, if this is available. And the way you will go about setting this up, same thing. Here it's a bit more custom, I would say. You connect Salesforce, you will connect your Salesforce data here, and then you select the fields and join in the fields. I will send, or I'll put below a couple of links which contain the code on how to achieve these outcomes. Same will go for HubSpot or Shopify. You simply add your connection and then stream the data, stream the fields you want. And then what we have, now I'm showing an example of one of our data set. Once we join that CRM data, so we have the transaction ID, and then we have the CRM type. So in our case, it's the user complete the onboarding, or is it a chunk lead? And then we join these together with the journeys we had from the step one. And then we basically see the path to conversion and the CRM outcome. And that's it. And now based on that, you can then make optimizations on what really works for you and stop spending money on campaigns which don't bring positive returns for your business. And then if we join in the costs, it will look something like this. That's just an example here. We then can look for the conversions here, which we have on a channel level. And then we can filter, say, I only want to have onboarding completed. And then I can immediately see which sources give me the conversions which convert into a completed onboarding. You would do the same just with your fields, with your CRM fields and dimensions. A couple of use cases to wrap this up. Shopify net revenue and CLV models are quite popular. There the stack is GA, Shopify and ad data. SaaS CLV optimizations. We see some connecting GA, Stripe and the ad data. and some others which use GA HubSpot and the ad data. On e-commerce custom acquisition optimizations, we see GA sometimes, quite frequently for the larger e-commerce companies, legacy CRM data via SFTP, and then the ad data, then joining everything together. Automotive, I think it's quite an easy to explain example. We have a path to purchase. We have data from a CRM system. So the path to conversion on the website is booking a test drive. Salesforce then tells us, did that test drive result in a car sale? And then does that car sale, then bring money? And then we basically join it together so we can have a return on ad spend rather than just a CPA of optimizing for the number of test drives. Then another one is online and offline conversions for retailers. There I can also put the link below. It's going a bit more complex. An example there is storing the loyalty ID of the customer as a custom dimension, as I mentioned before, and then asking on checkout within the store the user to show his loyalty ID or his loyalty card to then join together the online journey with the offline transactions. That then helps to optimize outcomes based on offline in-store transactions. Education is another one, path to enrollment. Often in the education industry, optimizations are still done on form fill. With joining Salesforce data or whatever CRM it is, we can then optimize on path to enrollment to understand what campaigns actually bring us the enrollments. That's all for today. Now we covered these 3 questions. If you have any more questions or would like any further reading, then please feel free to comment below. Looking forward to your feedback. Thank you.